This conference will now be recorded.
We are now live for the Pelican Preserve meeting of Thursday, April 8th, 2021.
I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Sure.
We have with us John Grega, Teresa Phillips, Doug Zanter, Phil Measy, and Joe Schofield. Do we have the other members on the line? I see Glenn Sikorsky is on the line. And Ron? Not yet.
I do not see Ron yet.
Okay, Chris Shoemaker is here from the CDD. We will have other people very shortly. So we have a quorum. The meeting is called to order, has been called to order. Start with the financial report. Glenn, you want to?
Do we need to make a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
to
I keep forgetting that, don't I? I have a motion to include Glenn and, well, I guess.
Ron, if he
and
shows
Ron.
up, you can.
Hmm?
If he shows up, you can have him.
Yeah. And
I'll make a
Ron, if
motion
you-
to
okay.
accept Glenn in the meeting, and Mr. DePonte just decided to join us, so we can accept him if he wants to join us.
Okay,
Hello, everyone.
moved by John, seconded by Doug. Assume no discussion, all in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Okay. Let's go on, Glenn, you want to take us through the financial report?
Well, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Loud and
Loud and
clear.
clear.
Excellent. Scott and I have been discussing what we did last meeting to incorporate a little better on the numbers. I'm still not totally happy with what I sent you. You should have in your package the February statement of income and expenditures for the our portion with the CDD. We did change the safety and security to bump up that the budget item is $70,000. You got to turn your head, I guess, to see this. But I also did include with it, now that I'm getting the gateway, if you scroll down the next page, Chris, to a little further down, right there is the reserves. You can notice the second column for February, our reserves are 5.663 million with for the capital emergency ponds and unassigned. And if you scroll down a little further, you will see upcoming will be the sources of revenue through the tax system, etc., for the 002 account Pelican Preserve as provided by Gateway, and what we've allocated or have allocated with the budget, etc. Now, how we're going to tie this all into one Excel spreadsheet, I want to still work with Scott when we start working on our current year budget to how we can make this a little more simplified or understandable. And I must apologize that by the time we got the numbers, I couldn't come up with a total solution yet, but I guess I could say, trust me, we're working on it to get it in a little better shape. So if you go back, Chris, to the first page, this is the most important to show on, scroll up, yep. This, I don't know, can you, one more, go right to the top, one more. Can you turn that counterclockwise or clockwise? Sorry that it came in that way.
Sorry.
I'll see that there, rotate left, rotate right, there you go. Keep going, over with your cursor. Yep.
There it is.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. So you can see that our budget is 1.42, and we have allocated all the different account numbers. I don't think there's anything there that really jumps out we are spending a little bit more on the manned access control for Securitas, a little 11 grand more variance. But other than that, some are under, some are over, based on when the expenditure is incurred. Are there any questions on that?
Yeah, Glenn, the overage on the manned access control, did we not budget for the extra people or person? Is that what's causing that, or is there something else?
Glenn, I can answer that for you. Scott Charnock, Pelican Preserve.
Thank you.
The budget reflects the annual amount by month, what's going to be expended in that expense line. This portion represents the extra person, so it's going to be ahead of the 12-month budget. But now that we're going out of season, that expense is going to drop and we'll come back in line with
Oh,
budget.
so that was budgeted for 12 months, but
Yes,
even
but spread across the 12 months.
Spread across the 12
Yes.
months. Okay, got it. Yep.
Good, very good.
Nothing else significant, Glenn, that you would point out to us that we're
Not at the present time, no.
okay?
I wanted to add though, Mr. Chairman, for Chris, I hope you had a good vacation, Chris, in the snow. What's the status, Chris, on our getting the sales tax exemption by running Pelican's Preserve's taxable expenditures through Gateway? Did you hear anything back on that?
Well, if it's done through the CDD on CDD assets for that type of thing, we can do that. Like streetlights on district roads. But if it's a PPCA asset and that contract is being administered and let through the PPCA, then that's a private entity and they cannot take advantage of the sales tax savings. And that even came up for discussion previously about, well, maybe we can turn these assets over or some way to convey them to the CDD, but it seemed like what the control versus the savings, that discussion stopped. So
okay, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, if you're looking at something like the electric accounts for the aerators that are serving district-owned ponds, that's one thing. If it was something to do with the town center, that's quite another. So it depends who owns the asset and who's letting the contract.
Well, the biggest one I see, other than Florida Light and Power, is Securitas. We're paying the 6.5% Florida state sales tax. Couldn't we say that is a CDD expense and therefore get it exempt from that monthly sales tax?
I could not answer that question. They do work in the gatehouse, which is a CDD asset. They work out of there, but I think they're serving and hired by the community.
Right.
So that would be the issue. I would have to pose that question to council.
I think it's worth doing, Chris.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, put that to council, because not only am I looking at, or us as a committee going forward on these expenditures, but I would be able to go back 3 years and get back that sales tax on that expenditure. And also the street lights. I believe that when I look at those FLP invoice, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, they are charging us the Florida sales tax on there.
And we have been going through on a number of those street lights, and we did change the billing over. I've been working with Mr. Gephardt all last year, and had been working on the aerator accounts too. But we did not go after any back sales tax collections.
Okay.
Switching the accounts over as we went through them over a several month period.
Well, Glenn, is that something you can pursue with Chris?
I'm gonna do that. I will set up a meeting with Chris to come see him physically, and we'll get a plan of, to see how we can proceed to change those type of expenditures, and secondly, put in the claim for the back 3 years.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it would be helpful. We'll just go through that maintenance agreement and go through it with Tony too and highlight all the ones that would be eligible and ones he thinks are not. But the items in the maintenance agreement should all be eligible.
mhm.
Well, all right. Well, thank you. I will do that. I will certainly, Phil, take that on my side of the ledger to do and work with Chris to see what we can come up with.
Yeah. It seems to me that you can kind of cross-rough it with this list of accounts to see what's on there that looks like it's, it could be shifted over.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So
All
you're
right.
that sounds good.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions of Glenn? If not, we'll move on to the next item, which is the March 11th meeting minutes. And I would like to give my compliments to the people who compiled those minutes. I didn't find a thing in them that I thought was a problem. They were the cleanest set of minutes I have ever seen. Teresa, so thank you. I don't know, maybe some others found things in them. Do we have any additions or corrections to those minutes? March 11th?
I already made the corrections.
Hmm?
Sure. I already.
You made a couple of corrections, okay,
And the current ones you have are the ones with the corrections.
okay. I'd entertain a motion to accept the minutes as corrected.
I'll make a motion to accept the March 11th minutes as presented.
Second? Second. As moved and seconded by Joe and Teresa. Any further comments? If not, I guess we should take the roll on this, Chris.
Certainly. For the vote, Mr. Measy,
Yes?
Mr. Grega,
Yes.
Mr. DePonte,
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Schofield,
Yes.
Mr. Sikorsky,
Yes.
Mr. Zanter.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Okay. All right, item 4, the exotic vegetation maintenance contract. And Elle, are you gonna fill us in on this or?
Well, there's two portions to it.
Okay,
And I'll go ahead and just briefly at the board meeting last week, the board approved the purchase order to Woods and Wetlands, which is just a continuation from last year. Their price went up $100 for the whole contract. The total is $53,700, which basically takes them through their spring events. And we went this way, but the board directed us. They wanted to put those services out to bid because it hadn't been done for 3 years. And so Elle has been working with Brian and enhancing and updating. And there's two sides I saw to it with our vegetation contract and with Aquagenics. We started putting in the permit number and permit requirements and like a map of the area so the contractor would know, and that may be helpful to the ponds group that does that inspection. But Elle took over the show, so I'll let her explain on her end.
Right, and I have communicated a couple of times
Elle,
with Doug.
probably you'll just introduce yourself to the
Oh,
minutes.
sorry,
taker.
thank you. My name is Elle Harris. I am Natural Resources in the Public Works Department for Gateway Services.
Thank you.
And yes, going back, I had communicated a couple of times with Doug on this contract, and we said absolutely we would be willing to work with them and put something together. So what I did was I took our contract. The only thing I changed, which I don't change the legal part of the contract in any way, that's a Tony thing. So I took our contract and went through the specifications and just made sure that it does call out the permit number and the specifications requirements according to that permit. And that is included in the maintenance specs of this document that I've given Doug to review. I put together some bid sheets for him, maintenance schedules, which would be set by the committee, of course. I didn't fill that out. I left that option up to them completely. And a supplemental pricing form. I do just want to mention that there's probably a couple of areas that you don't currently have under contract that, you know, we might want to look at making sure we do have covered. And those are both west of tree line. One of them in particular, I just got a call from the South Florida Water Management District. And they were telling me that they noticed this conservation area that wraps around the fire station on tree line. And they were noticing some exotics in there. So that's why they called me. And so I took it upon myself to call Woods and Wetlands, and I asked them for a proposal to do an initial cleanup. I asked them to send that to me just so I can get some dollar figures on it and see what we need to do to get that in turnover condition. It needs an initial cleanup because it's been a long time. There is some melaleucas and other things growing in there. So it's not terrible. It's not terrible, but it is going to need what we refer to as an initial cleanup.
And is that on Pelican Preserve property?
It is technically
Technically.
under the Sun City Pelican Preserve. They call it FKA, formerly known as Sun City. So it's on your Sun City permit. But again, like I say, I've already asked for a proposal to get that cleaned up and initial cleanup. And I did list that on your bid schedule.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the current proposals we have with them are vague at best. I couldn't tell you which one of these are included in each proposal. It just says so many acres and so many linear feet. It has no tie back into what's actually, I couldn't tell you if they were all in there or not by the way that it's worded. And just so you know, you had mentioned 3 years. The original contract with them that has not went to bid was that's why they say when Pelican Reserve first went into existence. And that was with WCI. And it just was extended from WCI to Lennar to us. So it has not went to bid. I mean, how many years? 20 some years. We've had a 20 some year relationship with very little detailed contracts.
Well, I find it easier personally, and you may find a better way to do it, but I find it personally easier to track it this way.
No,
And I can see how they might find it a little bit easier and more in tune with what they're doing to bid it this way, because it gives them a specific number of acres, and this is your perimeter. This is the linear feet of your perimeter. We want to bid to maintain this area. They bid on this by the acre, by the way, so it's pretty clear cut. And then when you have your map to follow along with these numbers, which are in numerical order, very easy to follow. You can follow them right down your map there, and it's very easy for you and the contractor to follow along with that. Like I say, I also included a maintenance schedule, so you can put down how often you want your individual areas to be maintained. I have some that need maintenance more often than others, and you may know those too. So, and there's some supplemental.
I wanted the same type of spreadsheet she has there, because from what we currently have in place contract-wise, you can't determine what they maintain and what they don't maintain.
So
I will be happy to forward all of these documents that I have provided for Doug to all of you today. I will be happy to send them to you in an email.
I don't see any need for, unless somebody else does, I don't see any need for us to have it.
Okay,
Okay. As long as Doug's got it, and you can make the jump from the list to the map, so you know exactly what we're doing. That's
correct. And if you need any more help, Doug, you let me know. I did go through the body of the contract documents and tried to do a word search and change things that said Gateway District, but needed to be Pelican Preserve Association. So I did look through there, and if I missed anything, please let me know. I did do a global search and try to find everything. Some things needed to be remaining as Gateway Services District because of ownership of the actual piece of lands. But, you know, and we want to make sure that we have their insurance insurance documents and such as that on file here. But most of it, like I said, I went through it and tried to make sure I changed everything so that the contractor would be reporting to the Pelican Preserve Association or a designated representative of the association. So
Al, that original, the initial cleanup on that area that we just found out we have west of tree line. Order of magnitude, what are we talking about?
it is, what did I say on there? I want to say it is,
Out of the cost.
it's 19 acres. I don't have a cost yet.
You don't have cost.
I don't have the cost yet. I just sent that, I just got the call and talked to the Water Management District on Monday and requested the proposal from Woods and Wetlands Tuesday.
Mhm. But-
So
Or,
it was turned over. I have the transfer documentation. It was turned over.
But, you know, the thing there is we didn't know, no one knew it was not part of the existing contract, or maybe it is part of the existing contract. You just don't know since it's not listed.
Yeah, I
At that
didn't see
level,
it.
What I mean, it's hard to tell because of the way the contracts are written.
Right.
no, I just wanted an idea. I mean, are we talking about $1,000 or $1 million?
No, it might be, let's see, 19
Just- or-
acres.
I won't hold you to it, just,
It's usually about 3 to 350 an acre
Okay.
for an initial cleanup.
that's all I wanted to know. Okay.
And that's general,
Yeah.
kind of depending on what they see when, you know, they go out to inspect it and give
So
me
we're
a
We're
quote.
talking $6,000 to $8,000.
I did
Less
tell
than
them
10.
that we
Less
didn't
than
want
10.
anything fancy. They don't have to cut it and haul it off site, kill in place, an initial cleanup,
Okay. Sounds good.
okay? And if you need anything else from me, Doug, you please
Okay.
reach out and I'll be happy to help out.
Any questions of Al? So do we need to pass anything here, Chris?
Yes, sir. We need to pass the proposals from Woods and Wetlands for an amount of $53,700.
That takes us through,
That will take you to your
Through-
fall, and right now that's the spring treatments.
that's the spring, right?
And Al and I discussed it because if we forego this work, when we bid it out, by the time the next contractor came in, this hasn't been done in 8 or 9 months. It's going to cost a lot more. So it's really just to have it ready for whomever. If Woods and Wetlands gets the contract, they know it's in good shape.
Right.
The
It's
new
a
people
bridge.
know.
It's a bridge from the existing current contract we have to the bid process.
And the funds are budgeted. You have $110,000 in your budget for this work, and this is $53,700. So you'll have a little more than 50%.
Yeah, it is.
So you want to make a motion, Doug? that we-
I motion we accept this proposal.
I'll second
for
it.
Woods and Wetlands?
Yeah.
John,
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, we'll take a vote on it. Chris?
Okay, Mr. Measy,
Yes.
Mr. Grega,
Yes.
Mr. DePonte.
Ron, you with us?
Yeah, I think his mic's off. Yes. Okay, Mrs. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Schofield,
Yes.
Mr. Sikorsky,
Yes,
Mr. Zanner.
Yes.
Motion to approve the exotic vegetation control and Pelican Preserve for Woods and Wetlands passes unanimously. And
And the board needed us to confirm that, right?
yes, we passed by the board and it was just a little backwards this time
Yes.
because I didn't want to wait another week. And I know they want to get to work out there and they'll be getting the bids out. Thanks, Al and Brian, for putting that product together.
Very welcome. If I can help you in any other way, just let me know.
Thank you, Al. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that will be advertised in the newspaper too, and we put it on Demand Star.
And
So
you want, we all, what?
You want 3 days in a paper or a week? Do we have to hand it to Tony? Tony has to send it down to the news press to advertise that you're gonna put a bid into there.
They need to review it first to make sure.
But when we get there, you gotta let me.
I would go a week.
and those,
We're going to have a fair number. I already know a fair number of people that are, our current contractors that will bid on this.
Okay.
So it's not like we're only going to have one bidder.
And when you see the advertisement in the newspaper, Bill, it will shock you. Because it could easily be $500 per advertisement to publish that.
Mhm. I'm wondering if.
Wait, is that per day?
Yes, sir.
If Doug, if
And
you,
then vote.
I was gonna say, if you already, if you already know there are people who know
Yeah.
about it,
I
let's
just
make it
told,
3
I
days.
just told Brian 3 days.
3 days.
We did our stormwater, we made 3 days.
Okay.
And do you remember what that cost, that ad?
It was 3 days, almost $1,000.
Yeah.
What happened to the megaphone and going to City Hall and saying, hear ye, hear ye?
Well, it's a legal requirement that you publish, advertise, and advertise that bid in a public forum, locally published newspaper. But we also send that to Demand Star that puts it out to all the contractors that are subscribed to their services, and it's public. So anyone can get the bid from there.
Okay, well, yeah, so I think 3 days makes sense,
Yeah.
particularly if a lot of contractors already know about it. So that'll be good. Anything more on exotic vegetation maintenance? Construction road conversion. I can tell you, we had a meeting on this yesterday. There are 12 items on the to-do list, if you will, the task list, and Chris is kind of heading up this effort. There's a lot to be done. Chris, comments that you might want to make?
Well, the only thing the main focus of that, of course, is the district's moving forward to take the parcels that are owned by Lennar, and which includes part of the construction road. The road behind Prato, that property is owned by the PPCA. So we're moving forward right now with surveying to do a property transfer of the Lennar properties and also the PPCA properties, and also the landscape easement that Prado has. So the landscaping on the other side of their wrought iron fence will be included in that. And the CDD will end up having responsibility for landscaping on half the berm on that side. So there's a lot of moving parts in there. The DRI application is moving forward. Tony is presenting next week an agreement between WCI, the CDD, and Pelican that basically allows them to move forward with signing the DRI applications without any worry or recourse or additional requirements. Lennar has stated that they will not sign the DRI application until this agreement's in place. Then things will start moving forward more quickly. The engineer was in on the call yesterday, and we have plans from the original road, but it will require a water management district permit. Good part too is the construction estimates, because the width of the road is down from the original, should be dropping considerably. And on the plus side, if we do get that property from Lennar and everything moves forward, there are plans to landscape along Gateway Boulevard, that entire barren parcel right now. So the people at Prado could benefit from a secondary buffer from Gateway Boulevard.
What is the width of the road as proposed now?
16 feet.
It would drop from 20 to 16, John.
It's a
And-
22 to 20 to 16 then.
Oh, was it 22?
It was 22 originally.
And part of it will be a little wider by Gateway Boulevard, because you have to have a bubble for a turnaround prior to the gates in case somebody turns off there inadvertently and needs to turn back around to get back on Gateway Boulevard. So the pavement will be a little wider there.
So if that's provided for, John, the bubble for the turnaround. The apparent cost of doing this, originally estimated at over $400,000, now has dropped to well under 3, right?
Well, I think so. We're fine tuning that from the discussions we have, and some of those ancillary costs. You have the survey, of course, the title work, and some of those. But it's really just stabilizing that base, putting the asphalt on top, and putting the gate system in.
How many gates? There's a gate at Gateway,
There'd be a gate at Gateway Boulevard, and one at Prado.
one at Prado as well.
Two gates, yeah.
And the one at Prado, if you pull up there, you'd be able to see it, but it really would keep you from leaving Prado. You won't be able to go down the road, and there's the gates. It'll be right there at the entrance.
John, if you had a chance to read the blurb that we put out for the vote on transferring the land, you'll see that we mentioned in there that there are 2 gates.
I was surprised. I took a bike ride down there. On my way back, 4 cars passed me. It's just, they still use that road.
Well,
Well, they could be construction.
No, they were not
People too.
construction. I knew who they were.
Did that Mercedes pass you?
One Mercedes did pass, yes.
Must
Well,
have a good
It'll be
suspension.
more secure once this road, this
When the-
thing is
when-
put
when-
in with the gate.
when that's
Oh, I hope
put
so.
in, that should cut that out.
Yes.
That should cut that out. And only the emergency folks and the CDD utility people will have these transponders to open those gates.
Correct. And,
So
and what,
that should cut a lot of that stuff.
yeah, one
out.
of the purposes too for the landscaping, besides the aesthetics, it's really so if people wanted to cut around the gates and get up on that road, even though they'd run into the Prado gates, they won't be able to get back there because we'll have that landscape buffer. That's part of the purpose.
Mhm. Okay.
Sounds good.
And just to mention, of course, that we're having the vote. At the special meeting, the vote will be on the 20th, or the votes will close in effect on the 20th. As of this morning, which was really the first report, we had about 17% of the votes in. We need to get 30 in order to get a quorum. And it was largely in approved against not approved. Very few not approving.
Well, and if it is transferred over to Gateway, it'll be tax exempt. So the community association won't be paying property taxes on that parcel.
On that parcel, okay. The big parcel of which it's a part has to be replatted, I guess, in order to get that
Yes.
one piece.
Yeah, and also there's some, planning work to let go of that landscape easement, to adjust that. And that'll all be part of the boundary survey.
Okay. Any questions?
Is there still a guard down there?
Yes. And typically,
He sleeps.
well rested.
Only on one bike ride.
But I have seen them, when I've been through there a few times, I'm in a white truck, they'll come out and get my tag. I mean, go behind there, Assembly Gateway CDD. And people that are going out, when they stop them, if it's not a construction vehicle, they say, don't come back this way.
We got one complaint about somebody thinks they're partying over there. There are noises and sounds like there's a party going on. We haven't been able to discover exactly who that is. But that was one of the complaints we got.
If you get a real-time complaint, call me. I'll go over and look.
You go for a party?
No.
Yeah.
Well, it depends, John.
Take your beer.
Yeah, probably.
That's right.
The way sound echoes all over the place, it's hard to pinpoint where it is. We're getting complaints on Carina Circle about the condos that they're building on the other side of the flowway. And they're saying it's like they're in their backyard talking when they have even on their lanais. But apparently the contractors also have some parties once in a while over there after hours. And they become quite noisy.
That's maybe what these people are hearing.
It may be very much so.
Yeah.
And what time is that?
I haven't heard it, so I don't know. I was talking to somebody yesterday who was complaining about it.
Okay. Any more discussion on the conversion? Okay, we'll move on to CDD report. Chris, anything to report to us?
Well, talk with Scott, and the notice of commencement's been recorded and the bond document for the Boardway project. And there is a pre-construction meeting set next week. And as soon as I have those two documents in my hand, I'll issue the normal notice to proceed. The permit's been issued, and they have a 2 or 3 week lead time for their material, but they'll be working on deconstruction for that time period. So that's not going to slow them down. So we expect that to get started over there in about 2 to 3 weeks. They'll be
Did
working.
the completion date change with the delay in the permit?
It does, it gets pushed back, and that's one reason they didn't want to put in the notice to proceed until they had that permit in place. And that's not unusual. And there was also from Sienna, they had a couple issues that they wanted to make sure were addressed during construction. We'll bring that up, the agreement we have with them during the pre-construction meeting. they had also asked for some minor enumeration for some landscaping, and I did have that check cut, and it should be in their hands by now, so that'll all be taken care of before they get started.
So we're just paying expenses, no bribe.
No, sir, it's
They
just,
wanted to be bribed.
it's enhancing the landscaping.
Did we determine exactly what material the contractor was using? That was up in the air. He said he'd use either one that was.
It's in the cut sheets that should be coming in, but I'll get you the cut sheets. I couldn't tell you
I
myself.
don't remember whether you're using the brown material or the gray material.
I thought we were using whatever matches what they did on the bridges.
Yeah, it was the match.
Yeah,
That was the intent.
okay, that was not his original.
And the size matches the bridge.
Okay,
It's
Yeah.
a thicker board.
Yes.
Yeah, the bridge construction is pretty good.
Yeah.
I just
It's
did
good.
not remember.
It is, it's good quality material.
Okay, that's fine with me.
All right, good. Chris, anything else? CDD?
Well, we have our budget schedule, getting started, of course, and we'll start having hearings and public hearings and staff, reporting on the budgets. There's a lot of infrastructure we need to repair and replace in Gateway. We have a utility rate case underway, which may push our rates up for the 25% of the customers that live in Pelican Preserve that are served by our utility system. And even if we went on the full-blown rate case increase, which we won't, we'd still be lower than the city of Fort Myers. So that'll be coming up, and I've just been asking people to get involved. There's a lot of issues out there that they aren't specific to Pelican, but overall, the last few of our budget hearings, we have 3 or 4 people show up. And I said, it's like voting, don't complain after the fact.
Where do we put the notice of those out?
We have that on our website, and I can also provide that to you with all the hearings. And what I've asked people, I said, look, if you can't come, you can email the board members, and you can also chat in. And that whole tree issue with pulling those trees down got a lot of people excited. And I even asked them, I said, well, you have to look at the expense of keeping the trees and the damage. And I had several people said, well, increase my assessment $50. That'll cover root barriers and pruning and fixing the irrigation and pipes that it's breaking. So it's kind of interesting what people will pay for that identity.
Yeah, it'd be a good idea if we got copies of that, because that might be something we would want to publish someplace.
I will get those over to you today.
Okay. Any further questions of Chris? Okay. Association manager report and Securitas. Scott, you're up.
Good afternoon, Scott Shonat with Pelican Preserve. I see that Chris Lopez, our district manager with Securitas, is on the line. He's muted right now, but he's here to give the report. Chris, if you want to unmute yourself, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, Cristobal Lopez with Securitas Security Services District Manager. I want to start with the traffic reports. The counts for this past month in March 2021 was a total of 94,149. With that being broken down between the guest lane and the resident lane. Guest lane was roughly 13,324. On the resident side, it was 80,825. As I project for this month, it will be roughly around the same numbers, with a give and take of 10,000 cars, depending on the amount of people leaving Pelican Preserve this month. I did have a conversation with Scott earlier in the week, and we have talked about the secondary officer at the main gate, possibly discontinuing that sometime this week, if not by today. Any questions?
Scott, I think we have more to say, do we not, about Securitas?
Yes, Chris, do you want to give us an update on the changes and the staffing up at the gatehouse and what has transpired in the past 6 weeks?
Absolutely. I do understand that there were some mishaps and officers not doing what they were supposed to, not following the post orders. And in the last couple of weeks, we've made changes to those personnel, I should say. We have removed one officer that was really problematic in creating these issues. We have a new officer on site that had finalized training yesterday and is currently taking over for that officer. As far as the incident that happened with the officers at the gate not dressed properly, that officer as well has been removed from the site, and we have addressed all the staff to let them know that everyone gets checked. But we check the IDs for every vehicle. We check IDs versus the permanent guests that are on the list. And we also parent passes for everyone that comes into the property. Now, I understand that the property is a CDD, the roads are owned by the CDD, so we do not turn around or refuse entry, but we do sign them in to the proper locations where they're going to, whether it be the town center, the golf clubhouse, or someone's home, as long as they're on the list.
My sense of it is, and I guess others too, that we need to have consistency in doing what we're doing. I mean, there are lots of reports of people telling me that they weren't asked for an ID or one thing or another. So we've got to make sure that we're following those rules. I don't know if you have any comments.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your comments.
Well, I have a comment while waiting for what we're on. For the first time, I came through and there was a long line coming through the resident gate. And I know we have discussed this before. First time I saw it actually in action, one of the attendants went out, they raised the gate, and the attendant went out there, stood in line and waved all of the residents through, checking the barcode on the car before he did it. And he got that traffic jam resolved in no time at all, and it was wonderful.
Great.
And I told my wife, I've got to remember to tell you folks all that. It worked. And I agree with Phil. It should be a consistent thing. When there's 5 or 6 cars out there, that's the way I think we should handle that.
The reason there are 5 or 6 cars is people try to get to the gate too quick. It happened to me behind me, and the gate wouldn't open. But it's their own fault. I don't know how we communicate. We can't communicate to everybody.
I don't know that that was the case here.
Well, it
There
may
was
not
just
have
a
been.
lot of
I'm
cars
just
that
saying
piled up, and the guy,
that does happen.
I've seen that happen too, but this case, it was just a lot of cars. A lot of people coming through the guest line, and the line coming through the other way got long, and the fellow went out there, like he was open, and he flagged everybody through, but it was really, he was a tall man, and he was bending down to look at the barcode. I mean, it was very distinct, and I applaud that team that was there at that day. I wish I remembered the time, and they did a great job.
Somebody, excuse me, somebody on the line, background noise in somebody's house or.
I think it's Cristobal.
Chris, do you have background noise in your house? We're picking it up on the meeting.
He just muted himself.
Okay.
I apologize for that. Yes, I'm actually at home. Just a little tidbit. I did test positive. That's why I'm not there in person, and that's why I'm actually working from home and assisting Scott with moving forward and making this an easier transition moving forward, and making sure that everyone is doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing, following the post orders, following the rules of the community, and making sure that everyone does what they're supposed to on a consistent basis.
That's great, Chris. We wish you a speedy recovery. If you tested positive, that's too bad, but we wish you a speedy recovery.
Chris, I had one more comment from one of the members in the audience that there are still construction vehicles coming through the front gate. And I know the only time that construction vehicles should be coming through would be the long 18-wheelers bringing in the trusses. Besides that, the dump trucks and the concrete vehicles should be directed back through the construction gate. Would you follow up on that, please?
Absolutely, I will follow up. I did have a conversation with the site supervisor, Kelly O'Donnell, about the construction vehicles, and I made it clear to her that the long cement pylons are the only construction vehicles to enter the front gate due to them going through an area where they could damage these pylons, and I know it is very costly to replace.
Ron, you're still there. Did you have a question for Chris as far as Securitas?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions of Chris? And we'll move on. Scott, I know you have some other things to present to us.
Yes.
If there are no other questions of Chris, we'll move on.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. And again,
Thank you.
hope you recover quickly.
Thank you very much, and we'll meet again next month.
Yeah, he's been at home for 2 weeks. So he did get COVID. So we've been a little challenged working off site and not being able to meet, but we're working through it. So I sent all of you an estimate on the replacement of the 2 Royal Palms at the Bullnose entering Prado Drive, right past the Carina entrance. The amount was $7,187. That's primarily because one was a 30-foot tree, one was a 25-foot tree, and we want to maintain the consistency going into that area of Pelican Preserve. So it's a high visibility area, but this cost will make up 40% of our remaining plant replacement budget for the year. So that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention and bring it to you to go ahead and proceed with that replacement. We found out, as we assumed, but we did confirm that the problem with that bullnose is the same problem we have all the way down the Prado Drive Boulevard, and that is the hard pan and the amount of rocks and soil that all of our plant material was planted in. So this proposal also includes removing 4 feet diameter of the earth and replacing it with plant soil so the trees will grow. Those trees that were in place for probably 4 or 5 years old and their root balls still had not developed, and that's why they died. So when you plant trees in that type of soil, and that's what's happening all the way down Prado Drive with even the live oaks. It's just, it was fill dirt that was used, and it's something that we're going to have to work through and plan for in the upcoming years.
Joe, do you have comments?
Yeah, I do have a comment. I appreciate that we want to put some new trees there, but my feeling is, why don't we look at getting the whole island done from circle to circle and have this as part of that, not having a separate thing there. We know we have bad dirt. We've discussed putting fill in. We've been told there's a drainage problem there and just filling won't help the issue. The CDD has a man that I would say is maybe as expert as we're going to have available to us, and he's willing to go out and look at that. He's a horticulturist, and I think he's relatively new to the CDD, if I recall correctly. I was very intrigued in his introduction and comments, and I would really tend to say, I don't want to give Ameriscape this kind of money for 2 trees when we have a complete issue there, and we have a 30% of the community living in that Prado area, driving that road every day. And I think they deserve, as we've done with other communities, to have that road fixed up. And I think in its entirety is something more than 2 trees. And I'm concerned about Ameriscape's bidding process and that we only get 1 quote. In Carina recently, we found that they've been jacking prices up. 3 houses, 3 different prices to remove trees. then we've had some other issues, which you're aware of, with them reporting people that they didn't get a contract with and creating quite a stink between an HOA and a number of residents, where they were given a 30-day warning to fix a scratch in a concrete sidewalk that was not close to the gouge they put in a sidewalk with their mowing equipment. So I think we should get another bid, number one, and number two, I think we really should look at the whole thing. We should ask Chris if we can get that gentleman, and his name escapes me, to go out and look at that and do a professional job and try to do it at one time.
And Joe, we can do that, but you do realize the length of time that we're talking about, because the expenditure of doing the whole boulevard is going to be in the tens of thousands of dollars. And I just want you to know that I understand what you're saying. The scrape on the sidewalk actually did occur.
I was there,
But
I saw it.
But the background information is that the information went to the board, which it should have, and one of the board members instructed the property manager to send the notification to the owner. Now, if that would have just gone to the property manager instead of the chairman of the landscape committee, that could have been talked through before that notification went. So part of the problem that we experience, and we not only experience it with Ameriscape, but Mainscapes, Brightview, Landscape Dimension, is communication.
Well,
And Joe, frankly, that's not going to go away. But if the committee wants us to take on this vast project, I have no problem working with anybody, but you're still not addressing the focal point of entering that community. And we are getting comments on that of when that's going to be done. So whatever the committee decides to do, I am perfectly okay with, but there will be pushback coming, because those trees were removed for a good reason, because they died.
well,
And it's going to take time because, as you mentioned, you're going to have to excavate that entire interior boulevard, put in drainage and put in new material. And I can tell you that underneath that soil, there are big rocks. So they're going to have to be jackhammered out of there.
well, I can deal with the heat of a few people complaining there's just no palm trees there if we
Yeah.
have a plan to do something to make the whole place better. And if it takes us part of this year and part of next year to do it properly, I would be inclined to do that rather than just put 2 trees in there and hope that the landfill that they put in there is going to be sufficient.
I have no problem waiting,
And-
as I said.
Well,
But-
we discussed doing this months ago here, and I did some preliminary work on that, and I did talk to a fellow who owned a nursery, and I got some trees and shrubbery that he thought might work there.
Right.
But I would much rather have a professional, and I think this fellow here is the professional that could give us some guidance.
And
And
I have
maybe give us a
no
plan.
problem waiting if it's
Yeah.
the decision to wait, 12 to 18 months to get this project done, because we do realize
Well, maybe we can
depending
do
on the
it,
cost.
maybe we can do it in
Yeah.
2 phases.
Well,
and-
yeah, it seems to me, can't we just have the professional landscape guy take a look at it and then decide, phase it in if necessary?
I mean, I can do whatever.
I think
Whatever
we
direction we
could talk
want
to
to
the
go.
people in Prado and say, hey, we can put 2 trees in, or we can really make this a nice boulevard for you, and give us some time, let us present it properly, and even let them know what we're looking at, see if they have any suggestions.
Scott, I have a question regarding the tree that died.
Yeah.
It died as a result of what?
The compaction of the soil.
All right, I mean, we've had palm tree die and found out, once that occurred, we could not put another palm tree in. We had to go to another tree. Are you
That's a
aware of that,
difference.
sir?
That's different.
Okay.
That's a
disease.
difference. That's disease.
That's
These
correct.
were not diseased.
All right,
John,
so
that's
as long as you guys
fusarium.
are aware of that.
That's fusarium wilt. And
All right.
that's what happened to my trees. They
Yeah.
pruned the trees. The most common cause of that disease being spread is pruning with tools that aren't cleaned. So I had 2 that died, Within a month, my neighbor had one that died, and then the next neighbor up had one that died. And I got quoted $300 to take 2 trees out. My neighbor got quoted $240 to take one, and the next guy got $280 to take one. So that's where he got somebody, and they took a chain and they scratched the sidewalk. And Meriscape supervisor in our community took pictures and reported it, that he damaged the property, and he got a first notice. Whether our president told him to do it, that's not his story, quite frankly, but.
Well, it wasn't the president, Joe? Don't misquote me now.
Well, the
because
president
now
got
we're-
involved in it. He's
well,
the guy who talked to me.
But
and said,
again,
he
please,
wrote the note.
Joe, please. He may have written the note. I'm just saying how it went through the communication channel. The communication went from the Securitas supervisor to the property manager and the chairman of the landscape committee. And that's how it all started, with the instructions to send the letter to the owner.
I'm not in a position.
And again,
I don't think that that's something we want to replay.
I
Let's
agree.
talk,
I
let's,
agree.
okay, let's
What we-
not
I
replay
think
that.
what we want to do is look at helping, getting that whole boulevard cleaned up properly. And if several people are upset that there's not a big palm tree there, I think we just need to tell them, look, why don't we look at the whole picture? And we're going to make that whole place nicer for you.
Yeah.
It might take us 2 years. It might take us one phase this year, one phase next year, but we're going to make it look good, and we're going to do it all. It is a plan, not just popping a tree.
And I have no problem with that if we want to work on a plan together, but we better get going on it, because to tell the owners that we have a plan, and what you said, we want to make the whole boulevard nice, and well, what's the plan?
Well, I think we can do that.
But
Okay.
again, they've seen this before. Our owners have seen this before. We're working on a plan, but we don't have one.
Mhm.
We got to have a plan.
Teresa, you had a comment? Did you?
Well, the only hesitation I had to what Joe said was, we don't need to get the property owners in Prado involved and have suggestions from them. I mean, you ask 500 people for a suggestion or an opinion, you're gonna get 500 different opinions. So,
Okay, that's fine.
but I'm all in favor of getting this guy who knows his stuff to come out and suggest what a proper plan might be before we go ahead with this replacement of these 2 trees.
Sure.
Thank you.
And
Our history on this, believe it or not, we did this on Pelican or Cypress Grove Boulevard, and we were able to get the head of the University of Florida Extension Office to join us. And we reduced the quote from Meriscape by, I think it was about $15,000 with his input and changing the planning that the Meriscape had provided to us. The Meriscape does a good job, but they're a landscape company. They aren't real horticulturists or arborists. They're, so I think if we can get this professional help, we can come up with a really good plan, and we could maybe make it into 2 phases. So we're financially
Or more?
able to do it. Yeah, even 3 phases. And if we have a big boulder and we can't, it's going to cost a fortune to get it out, landscape around it. I mean, we don't have to plan everything symmetrical. Actually, unsymmetrical is more natural.
I was gonna say, if you need additional certified horticulturalists, we have one on our group that graduated from a university that's from Pelican, does our littorals and stuff like that.
Maybe we can put a committee together to work on this.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to.
I'll
head
send
it
you
up.
okay, and I'll send you his name.
Okay.
Glad to
Chris,
work
can
on
I
it.
work with you and your gentleman?
sure. And who you're talking about is Jim Kennedy. He works with Brian's team and and is in charge of the mainscape contract, and has an extensive background in landscape and horticulture and arbor and tree removal. It will be out of the office for probably about another week, but then I'm sure we could schedule like a walkthrough, and maybe you could have the fellow from Pelican and have them walk and exchange ideas.
Joe,
And we can coordinate with you, Scott.
Yes.
Certainly. Okay.
That's
I would,
fine.
I would say that, but one of the things we ought to say is we need to do this pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It would be good if we could
Yes.
have some kind of a plan or beginning of a plan at our next meeting.
It is worthwhile to hire somebody like that. I mean, our community, we just have 50 homes and we hire somebody.
Mhm.
I mean, it's inexpensive for what we get out of the guy.
Okay,
I'm good.
all right, everybody good about that? So Joe, you will head that up
I will
and
do that. Thank you,
we
Scott.
want to,
Yep.
we want to move quickly on that particular situation.
Very good.
Scott?
All right, the map that I provided to you is a map of one of our gate valves for irrigation off of Pelican Preserve Boulevard in Camarel. Gate valve is used for turning off the water irrigation main to certain areas so you can execute repairs. This gate valve is underneath the street on Pelican Preserve Boulevard. Now, the gate valve is turned on and off with what is called a T-wrench. It's one of those very long wrenches that you put into the ground. The valve connection to where the wrench goes is no longer operable. So the gate valve is open. To tear apart the street would be like what we went through over at Matarita. That is tens of thousands of dollars. So Brian had a great idea. Brian goes, why don't we just, the gate valve's open, why don't we put in a new gate valve where the green dot is on the map, which is off into the sidewalk area. So if we're talking about replacing a sidewalk pad, you're talking about $495, and the proposal is $1,482 to put in a new 4-inch gate valve. That way you're just bypassing the one that's there but can no longer be closed off. Now, if you pull the lid, it's only an 8-inch in diameter pipe that goes down 5-6 feet to the valve. So you can't get to it without tearing up the street.
So certainly sounds like it makes sense.
So
John, our engineer there, does that make sense?
I'd like to know why the valve got as bad as it did.
the valve didn't get bad. The connection for the fitting,
Because they probably had the wrong one when they were turning at one time.
Yeah.
or they turned it too tight and they broke off part of the wrench in the top,
Mhm.
but you
It's usually
can't,
what happens.
you can't see it. So
Erosion. Now, if I was still in business, I'd be selling you an electric automatic valve actuator that would handle the whole thing and just push a button and it goes. And they're inexpensive from my perspective. But
still got to get to the valve.
So let's
Yeah.
get back to topic.
Yep, so should we,
I have a red dot on my map.
The red dot is the location of the current,
the current,
Oh, okay.
the
What's
green dot in the grass
Oh,
is the location of the new one.
Scott,
Okay, thank
Scott,
you.
you don't need our, okay, you can go ahead.
No, I can go ahead. It's in the budget to do this. It was an FYI and a notification of what we were doing and why we were doing it.
And we have the right of way to do that in that section, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm with it.
All right. One last item, and this has to do with Glenn's report. Glenn and I will be meeting with Chris, and what we're going to do, the plan is to consolidate the financial reporting. The O&M agreement and the O&M budget that we've worked with in the financial reporting is only those expenses that go through the O&M agreement. They do not include the O2 account through the district. So it's not a true representation of what is actually being spent in Pelican. And this has been going on for years, so it's our opportunity to change the reporting because, I mean, currently right now, we don't have street sweeping in our budget. We don't have engineering in our budget for projects that require engineering. And we don't have a legal line in our budget whenever we use Tony Pierce. So I'm going to review it further with Glenn and Chris, and we'll have a few more expense lines to add to the budget, but it'll give a better representation going forward of the true financials.
And do we have to redo the maintenance agreement?
Which maintenance? Oh, no. This is
Well,
financial reporting.
Just for financial
Yeah,
reporting.
yeah.
And these things are charged to us, but they appear in what I've always referred to as the overhead costs.
Yes.
They don't go into the O&M agreement costs. So if you,
I just wanted to be
if you
sure
look
that I
at,
didn't have
if you
to
look
buy
at the presentation of the budget, you'll see that there are 2 or 3 kind of overhead things that just, we get a percentage of. And then there are things that are directly charged to us. And this will
Yeah.
move some of those things.
And these direct charges, instead of having a GL number on the financials, will just be, the GL number will be replaced by CDD, meaning that is billed to and expense through the O2 account with the CDD, and not in the O&M account at all, except for reporting purposes.
Glenn, do you have any further comments on this?
I think it's a great idea, and I will send Chris and Scott an email. I'm looking at the week of April 19th to schedule that meeting. So I assume both of you will be around. I'll give you a couple of days, and then I think probably, Scott, we should go to Chris's office to do this.
Yeah, we'll include our business manager, Laura Leroy, because she may have some input on there too, and then we'll coordinate through the master accounting with Infomark.
Okay, I'll coordinate with her also.
Sounds good. Scott, anything further?
Unless one of the committee members has a question for me that I did not cover, or I need to make further clarification.
Any questions of Scott? If not, we will move on to the next item. Ron?
Thank you.
You're on.
Okay, this is going to be a pretty short report. Tony Pierce continuing to work with the city on.
Go ahead, Ron. I goofed. Should have been Doug first, but go ahead.
Okay, I can wait.
Yeah, Doug, why don't you, so we stay in order, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, I just update you on where we're at with the fires we had in the aeration. We've completed 3 separate studies, one by the original installer who worked with the compressor manufacturer and the electrician that came back with recommendations, what they thought the problem was to resolve it. One with our maintenance contractor that we have. It's all listed in your notes. And a third one was we just completed late last night. I got the final report from Tetra Tech. To net it out, the biggest issue was the fact that they were not GFCI circuit breakers, which were not required by code. And because I'll go through how I thought it happened, but because all 3 reports say the same thing. Okay, there's a few minor modifications. The original installer has offered 2 contracts to resolve them, proposals. One is to replace all the GFCI circuit breakers, and the second one is to rebuild the existing Pond 36 compressor. He's there. The GFCI original cost would have been about $30K. It's being done for $7. So he's doing the labor for free and doing the parts at cost. Okay. The same thing with the compressor rebuild. So the 2 of them together would have been about $50K to rebuild the compressor and do the GFCI. Right now it's sitting at $18K, the 2 contracts. I have went back to Solitude and asked them, there was 3 small changes. I talked to Stephen at Tetra Tech this morning. I sent him a copy of the proposals from Solitude to look through to make sure they matched. And there was 3 changes he wanted to make. I went back to Solitude and asked them to make those 3 small changes. And for everyone else, I also went to legal, to Tony, to have Tony read through the language in the 2 contracts. So, I mean, my recommendation is that we keep the aerators off until we get the thing installed. And we do the GFCI and start rebuilding the compressor, the compressor box. I could do it. I could do the first one, the GFCI, without you because it's less than the 10K. But I think it was a big enough exposure, and the CDD board has been informed of this and stuff, that I wanted you to be a part of that. So I'm doing a recommendation and asking for approval as opposed to just doing it, if that makes sense.
I just have a question. The circuit breakers, the GFCI circuit breakers, are they being put on every aerator, or is it just the aerators that have the fire?
They're being put, that's a good question. They're being put, the problem existed with the new compressors, which are 40 different boxes. We lost 3. There's 40 of them out there with the same, I'll call it design, the same compressors. They're being put on all of them, okay? They're being put on all of them. For the electrical engineers or the electrical people that care about the engineering type of, my best guesstimate, and I tried to explain it to Bob, and Bob said, I don't want to get parts of it. I don't want to know about the detail. I believe the compressor overheated. The thermocouple on the compressor did not kick it out. And because we didn't have GFCI, they continued to get hotter and keep running and started the fire. So it's sort of like the GFCI didn't cause the actual original problem, but because it wasn't in there, it was, otherwise it would have just been one compressor that would have been bad versus a fire.
The heat, I don't think heat affects a GFI switch. I think it's the
No.
amperage control.
No, what I'm saying is because there wasn't amperage control, the overheated compressor just kept running and got hotter. This is like the original problem is the overheated compressor. Okay, there wasn't a thermocouple that kicked it off in the compressor. There is a thermocouple in there that should have kicked it off. It didn't happen. And then the third thing was the fact since we didn't have GFCI, it just continued to run.
Yeah, I thought the GFI was working on amperage, and if the amperage spiked, then it would trip.
Correct.
John, do you have any?
I don't know.
You don't know, okay.
No, it
I'm
is.
just concerned.
I'm an electrical engineer.
I didn't know that.
I don't
Good.
Let's put it that.
I'm a
Yeah,
half-baked one.
It is meant, the main purpose is so when you touch it, the amperage spikes and you don't get shocked.
Yeah.
Okay, but it also would keep this condition from, it would have kicked off that.
Okay, I understand it.
Are you with it?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, all right.
I
So,
think,
so Doug, this is $18,000 in expense, is that
Yes.
right? And you're suggesting that it be one project?
it will be 2 projects. We will get the GFCI done first because I want to get the aerators back on all the ponds.
Okay,
And the second thing will be the box will be rebuilt.
okay. Will both of them be under 10,000?
No, the 11, one of them's 11 and one of them's 7. So the 11 will have to go to CDD and I already talked to Bob. We'll take it to CDD.
Okay. So do you want to make a motion
Yes.
about these?
I recommend, I ask for your approval to move forward with replacing or placing GFCIs with the contract from Solitude. The current contract 7, I will say not to exceed 10 because I want to cover the 3 other conditions that Tetra Tech brought up. And the second motion would be.
I'll second the first motion.
Okay.
Well,
Are we doing this
why
one?
don't you do it as one?
And in addition to that, to rebuild the compressor on pond 36, not to exceed 15K.
I'll second that motion.
That's moved and seconded. Any further comments about this? If not, Chris, can you take a vote?
Okay, we'll vote on expenditures to Solitude for rebuilding the compressor and also the GFIs. Mr. Measy,
Yes.
Mr. Grega,
Yes.
Mr. DePonte,
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Schofield,
Yes.
Mr. Sikorsky,
Yes.
Mr. Zanter.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Okay.
We already talked about the maintenance. That was already voted on. I'll just let you know, Al Slickers is part of our group, is responsible for the conservation areas and will be the lead for our team to interface with the bid process. The only other thing I have here, we resolved the issues. Remember at the president's meeting, Phil, Giordano was upset with the ponds.
Yes.
And I made a commitment within a month to be able to give them a resolution. In 2 weeks, we actually harvested that pond. We harvested pond 34 to get the littorals out of there. And I was ready to proceed to put rock on one corner, which is a problem. It doesn't look good in one corner of pond 33. I was ready to proceed with that. And they came back, the HOA came back and didn't want to go forward with it. They had a few people that were environmentalists that said they wanted the bank to be natural and didn't want anything done to it. So they backed down. So I came back with resolutions to both of their problems. Question to everyone, how do we maintain trash in Pelican Preserve?
Maintain,
Pick up trash that's in the neighborhoods. Because I got the same issue in the ponds and no one has responsibility for it. It's not in any contract. It's not the landscapers. I mean, sometimes people pick it up,
well, I've
but there
seen,
is no real organized thing that says it's not in our contracts to go into the ponds to pick up trash.
in our community, I've seen, and I do, pick up
Yeah, but it's
trash. But in
individual.
the pond, first of all,
Well, you
I
can't.
don't want to really go in the pond.
Right. No, what I'm saying though is there is no real thing that we do. There's no one responsible to pick up trash.
I don't recall anything in my association that has to do
No,
with picking
nothing
up
formal.
trash.
No, it's not formal.
And I don't know that the community association, the PPCA.
No
has
one,
anything.
I looked into it. No,
You did?
no one's responsible to pick up trash. The reason is that one person that sent a note to you that said they were sad that Bob was gone because I wasn't doing a good job.
Yeah.
I went and talked to that guy. That was one of his concerns, was the trash. And the other one was on the bulrush on the golf course bank, which we don't maintain. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the community has lasted for over 20 years without.
And so is the ponds group, by the way.
Specifics of picking up trash. I'm not quite sure.
I know that I had a complaint a couple meetings back
Yeah.
about trash in the ponds. And they believed that it was the construction people were doing it intentionally. And Bob checked it out and found, and basically they said, no, we don't intentionally put trash in, but occasionally the wind blows and something will get in there. So.
Yeah.
I mean, for the rest of the community, I would think each homeowner would be responsible for the looks of their own property. And if there was trash on it, they would go pick it up.
Yeah.
But,
And I think that, I think the
I
lands,
sure don't see a lot of trash floating around our communities. I have seen people pick up, particularly on trash day,
Right.
some things blow and, you know, it just,
Okay, we can end that comment. But because of that, I'm also sending, I got a letter drafted that you have a copy in your thing that I will update with the aeration solution, which is sort of like an introduction of me that will go out to the communication from the master board.
okay.
My team and some of the issues we've been dealing with, my name and an email address, just because I think what some people still believe Bob is in charge of the ponds.
make sure you put your electrical engineer in there and then people will just forgive you.
No, I won't. I won't do that.
Is that something you want the communications group to send out? Okay. So
Yeah,
this-
but what I'm doing is, number one is I have to get the aeration solution worked in because I just got that late last night. And second of all, I'm an engineer. I have to have my wife proofread the note before I send it over.
we,
I do that too. I do that too.
I love it.
I'm an honest person.
I can't spell, I'm an engineer.
we'll have our editor in chief
Okay.
look at it too.
Okay.
to make sure that.
And do I go to you or go directly?
No,
to-
go to me. and-
Okay.
And I will get it to her.
Yeah,
She will look at the
That's
way
all I
it's
have.
written. Yes. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Cecilia Haas. I'm the president of Casella 2 neighborhood.
Okay,
And there is a small pond behind some of our homes,
yeah, I do. The
Which-
one to the far right at the end.
all the way down on the
Yeah.
left. And eventually, Lennar's almost done. They're going to be out of there.
Right.
So the question is, does somebody from ponds come and make sure it meets all the guidelines? It doesn't have a pond number, so I don't know how identified it is.
When you go into your complex, is it the one on the far right?
No. When you drive into Pelican Preserve,
No, I mean, Casella.
into Casella over
Okay.
our bridge, you make the right into Casella 2 and 3 where they're still doing construction.
yeah,
The pond is a small one on the left side.
okay, I don't know.
Okay,
So
and
I've never looked at that pond. I will get back with you if you can leave me your contact
Yes.
information.
now Alan Slickers knows all about it.
Okay, Al.
He's our neighbor. He lives in Casella too.
Okay, because he was the one that was telling me some neighbor was picking up rocks from the construction site.
Cinder blocks is what they've been putting in there, is what I just heard.
I have photos of that. I mean,
Okay,
Yeah.
he's
because
actually,
I looked at the other pond on the other
oh,
end.
no.
but-
This
Okay.
neighbor, really, it started out cleaning up after Lennar.
Do
There
you
was the
have his,
black construction.
do you have his name?
I do.
And would, if you give it to me, I'm not gonna give him a hard time. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna tell him that we're controlled by, Florida Southwest Water Management, and we could get fined
Well, I
for
did
doing things like
tell
that.
him-
And if we do get a fine, it would go to him.
Well, the
We
thing is,
appreciate him caring to try to help us, but if you
but he
give me his
built up
name,
the whole.
I will talk to him, and I won't be mean,
Okay,
okay?
all right, fine. And in addition, in terms of the other issue about Lennar and
Yeah.
is, I noticed there's some plants that probably look like they belong there. You guys require more plants or less plants or,
Yeah, we have
know.
a fixed amount that has to be there on a pond.
okay, so it's behind units, the address, the actual addresses.
Okay.
It's behind 10509 through 10513, 105, I don't know. I guess.
If I can't find the pond, I'll have a problem. And
Right, that's
here's my email address.
Thank you.
We heard about the cinder block.
Six T-box.
And I'm sorry you had to sit here just for that comment.
Well, no, I always come here because that's how you learn about what goes on.
Okay.
Cecilia, thank you. Any other comments?
No, that's it, thank you.
Thank you. The cinder blocks were a topic of conversation at the fishing club last week. The guy said he likes cinder blocks in the water.
Okay, Doug, anything else?
No.
Any questions of Doug? If not, we'll move on now. Ron, now you get the star.
All right, thank you. Pretty quick, Tony Pierce is still working with the city to get our agreement with the Fort Myers Police Department expanded to include all of the new roads from Cypress Grove and all of the roads that extend off of that. He's still working on it. I've seen some of his follow-ups with the city, but they still have, to my knowledge, they still haven't finished their review. And hopefully it'll get done relatively quickly. He's been working on that for a couple of months. I'm not really sure how long it'll take for that to be completed. Chris, the post orders, they're on the 15 April CDD agenda. Am I correct?
They're on the agenda for the 15th, and Scott
Okay.
brought me over the signed cover sheet for it. So on the 15th, once approved by the board, I'll have the chair sign it and provide you a copy.
All right, thank you. So finally, we'll have the post orders that we've been working on for a while completed. I think you're all familiar with the rumble strips on Veneto. We did have to put those cones up to keep drivers and golf cart drivers from going over to the wrong side of the road. That seems to be effective. I've sat over there a few times in the last couple of weeks, and it does appear to me that the speed of the traffic has slowed down. We'll get more information for next month's meeting based on the results of taking the results from the monitor that we've got out there to see if the average speed has indeed been reduced. But I think that's working out okay. As long as we can keep people from venturing too far into the wrong lane, we're okay. We're going to be putting money in next year's budget to put in more rumble strips in the community. So we'll be aware of that, probably on Pelican Preserve Boulevard and Cypress Grove. Locations are still up in the air. We need to work on that a little bit, get input from you guys as well as to where we think that would make the most sense. We're going to be gathering some more traffic speed information over the next 3 to 6 months to assist in that endeavor to see where to get the most bang for the buck, if you will, for putting more rumble strips in. We'll see how that works out. And finally, just that later this month, the SSWG is having another meeting. And the primary goal of that meeting is to put the budget together for next year. So you'll see some money in there for rumble strips. There's probably a few signs, speed limit signs we probably need to look at installing next year. We're trying to keep the number small. We don't want, additional traffic signage, every 200 yards, having more traffic signage throughout the community. We're taking another look at the crosswalks. We discussed at last month's meeting about the need to adding additional crosswalks, especially around some of our roundabouts. So we're going to be putting some money in the budget for next year to address that particular issue. And we're going to continue to fund the additional Fort Myers Police Department patrols. Now that we're moving into the new area, we'll probably ask for more money in that budget, but maybe we want to have some discussion in terms of, do we want to have more police in the community, or whether the level of police is about right, but they're going to be spread out a little bit further. Recognize the speed limit over there in Prado and Astoria is 25, which they can enforce, as opposed to the communities and the rest of Pelican Preserve, where the speed limit is 15, and they really cannot enforce those 15-mile-per-hour speed limits. And that's it, subject to your questions and comments.
I do have a question about the crosswalks that we discussed last month.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, Teresa. I'm getting old, and you have to stand closer to the mic.
Okay, how about this?
Yeah, perfect.
We discussed the crosswalks last month, and I seem to remember there was talk about conducting studies to determine where we needed to have crosswalks. And I just wondered if that's a legal requirement, or if it's something that we could take time out of our days to sit and watch and see how many people cross at a certain place, and whether or not we think there needs to be a crosswalk there.
Yeah, there's no legal requirement here. The SSWG was doing exactly what you just suggested. We're primarily focusing at the moment, at least, on the roundabouts down there near Prado and Casella and Pistoia, those roundabouts down there, because we've gotten feedback, Joe Schofield, among others, about the need for adding some additional crosswalks around those roundabouts. So that's where we're concentrating right now. We don't want to ignore the main roads, Cypress Grove, as well as Pelican Preserve Boulevard. There's been some input that the ones on areas in Cypress Grove may be some logical places to put some crosswalks. So the committee's looking at that, doing it themselves. If you want to volunteer to help us out, I'm sure we can find some time for you to be sitting on a corner.
Well, I'd be happy to volunteer my time to do that.
Sure, okay.
But
I would too, Ron.
people from the committee have actually scoured the whole community and looked at where they thought they might be go in.
Yeah, well, I don't have a problem with any of that. I just thought if we had to pay somebody to conduct a study, that'd be kind of unnecessary.
Yeah, we're not paying folks. We're paying our SSWG double what they got paid last year to do this. So they're quite happy with that. But yeah, if you guys want to help out at our next meeting, we'll talk about that, and we'll see about extending an invite out to you guys. Anything else?
Good report, Ron.
Any questions of Ron?
Well, I just want to say, I'm not going to be able to attend next month's meeting, but Ron, that doesn't mean I'm skipping out on the patrol. I want to sit and watch
Okay.
and see how many
We-
people we need crosswalks for.
Yeah, we know where you live. It's okay.
Okay, thanks, Ron.
Ron, it's Glenn.
Yeah.
We saw those emails about the individuals were with flashlights looking at a air conditioner, and the resident called the security. The only thing I got out of that, which I was wondering about, was when they called, they said the mailbox was full when they called that number. Have you looked into that situation?
Yeah, well, I've had discussions with Scott, and Scott has talked it over with Securitas. If you recall earlier, when Mr. Lopez was on the line, he said they've replaced a couple of people. That's kind of extending out of that situation. And yes, the mailbox should never be full. No one needs to be look at that several times a day, and he recognizes that, and he was going to take steps to make sure that happens. So yeah, all of the things you just mentioned has been looked at, and we'll see over time if the problem is rectified.
Very
Scott,
good.
you want to add anything?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Scott, does Scott want to add anything?
Yes, that was part of the staffing issues that we had. And just so all of you know, we removed 4 officers from the property. So 3 of them are no longer with Securitas. 1 has been reassigned. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments about safety and security work group? Okay, if not, the attendance schedule.
I'm up for the next CED meeting.
Yeah,
I have a question about, do they have a workshop before every CDD meeting, or is sometimes the workshop and sometimes not the workshop?
Yeah.
Because the last 2 times I've been assigned to do the CDD meetings, they haven't gotten started until 5:30 in the evening because they've had a workshop that starts at 3.
Typically, if they run a workshop, it'll be the second meeting of the month. And the board will ask to have a workshop if it's something convoluted or it gets a lot of comments. We looked at having one this month, but there wasn't anything overriding. And I agree, the last time they had a workshop, but they put it at the end of the agenda. And so that's the thing we've changed with it.
Okay.
And also when you have a quote unquote workshop, which is really for open discussion, but the board can't take any action at those items. So it's usually a precursor to what's going to be on the formal agenda for consideration. But we've kind of started just putting it up as an open item. And then if the board wants to take action on it, they can. And also you have to advertise a workshop separately. So there's that additional bureaucracy and posting and things to go with it. So, but in the future, we'll move the workshops to the end.
Okay, that's great, because I also have a Thursday night meeting at 7, and when those don't get started until 5:30, there's no way I can attend the whole thing.
Okay.
So, that being said, I would volunteer for March 6th.
or May.
May 6th.
May 6th. Okay.
Yeah, I'll volunteer for last month.
May 6th, and
Yes.
we need somebody for May 20th, is that right?
You know, I'll do that because I'm probably going to be not available in June and maybe
Okay.
July.
Okay,
So that would be May.
okay. May 20th, am I correct, Chris?
20th.
Sounds like the right one. Okay,
Yeah, I'll do that because
all right. That takes care of that. Committee member requests and audience comments. John, we'll start with you. Any comments? Teresa?
Yes, I do. At the last meeting, we talked about the coloring of golf carts and golf cart seats, and we talked about resolution 2018-04. And and I was tasked with looking into that. Since that time, the chairman sent me a copy of the resolution, and I've read through the resolution, and I am in the process of composing a letter to Tony Pierce. And this is my theory. In order for the government to restrict a constitutional right, such as the freedom of expression, on the colors of our golf carts and or seats, there has to be a compelling governmental interest. And everything in Resolution 2018-04 appears to be a compelling interest because most of it has to do with safety. But I don't believe that the government, being the CDD, can make the argument that they have a compelling interest to determine what color our carts are and what color our cart seats are. And even if arguably they could say that the color of the carts is a safety matter, I do not see how they can argue that the color of the seats is a safety matter. So that's what I intend to state in my letter to Tony Pierce. And the easiest thing that could happen if he says, yep, you're right, we can take this out, because there is a severability clause which says if any part of the resolution is illegal or unconstitutional, they can cut that out without making the whole resolution bad. So what I want to propose is that it would be very easy to just remove those two portions of the resolution, and the rest of the resolution can remain intact. But if the CDD will not do that willingly, then our only recourse, I believe, would be to sue the CDD. And I don't think we're going to go that far. So,
Well, what are we trying to accomplish here, I guess? Are we trying to allow people to paint their carts purple? I thought we wanted to retain some uniformity.
my main thing is the seats. I don't care about if we get rid of that portion. Although I do believe that it inhibits our ability to check for liability insurance on all those carts that don't meet the specifications, because they won't bring their cart in to Castle Management to be inspected if it's not the right color.
So we have a requirement, a law, so to say, that can't be enforced.
Exactly.
Now, can I assume that the club, because it's a private organization, they can enforce the color code?
Absolutely.
For carts that are used at the club?
Mm-hmm.
But if you are successful in this regard,
Mm-hmm.
we can start getting village type carts around here. Is that right?
If I'm successful on both fronts, yes, that's right.
Well, I drove a guy's golf cart halfway home the other day because the keys work in all of them, and it was the same color. And I realized I was halfway home. I said, oh my God, this isn't my golf cart. So I drove back and said, I hope he's got not mine, because if he had mine, I wouldn't know who he was.
My wife and I did that one night at the club where we had a couple, and we got out and we got all the way home and realized we had somebody else's
I didn't
cart.
even have a drink.
I've heard of that happening a lot.
If you're successful, you don't care, you want different colored golf carts.
Not necessarily. What I want is no restriction on the color of golf cart seats.
Let's assume they start with all these different colored golf carts. Are they allowed on the golf course?
No.
If they own their own cart?
No.
No.
Okay.
The golf club is a private entity, and they have the right to make any requirements they want for their members.
Which they have,
Mhm.
but I've seen on the golf course various colored golf carts.
Well, that's because they're
Well,
not
they should
enforcing
be.
it.
Yeah.
Well, I know they're not, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. Well, that's not what concerns me.
I mean,
In theory, they could enforce it, John. I mean, it's like lots of things that happen here. There are rules.
Right.
In fact, we are struggling with them right now on COVID protocols. There are rules and they're not being enforced. And they're a problem.
This is Ron. Can I chime in for a second?
By all
Teresa,
means.
let me make this suggestion. You go to Tony and ask him to lay out the legal argument to have the restrictions, which I think is really what you want to say. Is there a legal ability to restrict the color of the carts and to restrict the color of the cart seats. And see what he says before we get into recommending that we get rid of the color requirements.
No, that's
Make
a fine
sense?
idea.
Okay.
But I guess what I'm hearing, Ron, is if he says there is no reason to restrict it, we can't control the color of the carts any longer.
Right. Well, if it's not legal to control it, then you can't. I mean, I don't know whether as a community association, whether the community association would have the ability to restrict colors of golf carts. I don't know the answer to that. And as a CDD, can we restrict the color of golf carts on our roads? I don't know the answer to that. And that's what I'm asking Teresa to ask Tony. Do we have the legal ability to restrict that?
That's the argument that I just made, is that the CDD does not have the legal right to restrict the color of our golf carts and or seats. Unless they want to claim that the golf carts have to be white or beige for safety reasons. And I can see that. If you have a white or beige cart, that would be easier for the cars to see on the road. So if that is their argument, then yes, that's a valid provision. But I still don't believe that the color of the seats has anything to do with the safety.
Okay, if the letter you're proposing to write is from you personally, you can write it any way you'd like. If the letter you're proposing to write is perceived to be coming from the advisory committee, I would just ask that you word it in such a way that we just want to know what the legal restrictions are on the ability to restrict color combinations on golf carts.
I'm just going to ask him what the legal theory is behind the restriction of the colors.
Good.
I think you're on the same page, Ron.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any questions of Teresa on that? Teresa, any more comments that you have?
Nope, that's
Doug,
it.
any?
Pond 52. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to ask Joe, your comments. I don't,
Yeah.
Doug, did you have any? I didn't have it. Go ahead.
Palazzo, I've been working with the CDD and the president of the Palazzo Homeowners Association. And the ball's really back in their court as far as taking over that road. There's a quick claim deed that exists. Their attorney's going to have to work on that and make a proposal to basically to the CDD and for their legal guidance. So we'll see where that goes. They've told everybody we support it, which we have, which is good. But now it's really more of a legal issue than our issue at this point. So they'll have to get back to us and we'll see where we go. And I have to bid adieu. It's my wife's birthday and I
Wish her happy birthday.
I will do that. She told me she was 22.
Again,
I'm sorry.
That's all right. No problem. No problem. Sorry.
I just didn't know what time it was. Okay.
Okay.
What did you get her for birthday?
I'm taking her out for dinner. What do you get somebody when you get to our point? I mean,
Diamonds.
she doesn't like diamonds, she doesn't like jewelry, she doesn't want roses.
Okay.
keeping my fingers crossed for a box of golf balls.
Ron, do you have any miscellaneous comments you'd like to make?
No, thank you.
Glenn? Glenn, any comments you'd like to make?
He's muted.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, and I have none. So that being done,
Move to
Our ne-
adjourn.
our next meeting is on
We need a second.
the 13th of May. Did I hear you motion?
I
to-
will not be here,
Okay,
but yes, I move to adjourn.
you move to adjourn. Do I hear a second? Moved and seconded. The meeting is adjourned. It is 3:43. Chris, thank you for your